KCAA.
Welcome back, guys, to Talkaholics. Today's we have actually, we're going to be going back again to the same thing that we did last week. And we have today a very special guest. Today, our guest is my wife. We will be talking about relationships and money. So, first off, I would like to introduce, obviously, myself again. My name is Jose C10 Covarrubias. I am one of your hosts in Talkaholics, and right now, like I said, today we have
Cynthia.
Yes, my wife. His wife. Yeah. So, it's very important. It's very important that we want to reiterate as well too. Like I know that last week we had a little bit of a technical difficulties when it came to the actual audio, and they had to play back again some of our prior shows, right? But this time we really do want to go over again, basically some of the myths, some of the like the interesting facts and things that kind of help a relationship, or basically what to expect or what to look into a relationship right now, right? So not just basically going into like a marriage stuff, but like since that's from something from like a perspective of like a unit, just being in a normal girlfriend boyfriend relationship, what are some of these things that you guys should take into consideration, right? I think for us, like we were mentioning last time, and Jasmine will be joining us here after the segment, but what we were talking about last time was that we really want to make sure that all of you guys are educated when it comes to like finances, and then this can actually help you guys out at the long run, also in relationships and things like that, right? So one of the things that we were discussing last week was what are some of like good things to do in a relationship when it comes to finances, and one of the questions was, is it a red flag to have or date a person that has basically a lot of debt? And then what kind of debt is bad? What kind of debt is a red flag? And some of the examples that we were utilizing last week was basically like, some of these folks, they say like, okay, what if you have student debt? Is that considered also like a red flag? Sometimes you meet this, your significant other, or you just meet people in college, kind of like how we did. We met in college, but it was until like way years later. It's like you don't have the same mentality, you don't have the same basically like thoughts that you did years back then. But let's say what happens with when people that actually do meet in college, and is like, is that considered a red flag? What do you think?
So, I guess everybody has a different perspective, but are you talking about like when I first met you in college, if I would have known like X, Y, and Z, or like now, if I were thinking like now,
Okay.
would that be something that I would consider?
Well, I guess like whenever you met me in college, we were like super young, right? We
Right.
were like in our early 20s, and at that point, I didn't have debt, so it was like I was doing it like the whatever people call like the right way, right? Like I was on fastball. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that, but I would actually budget. I did have a job, so I really didn't have that much debt, So it's like if you were to ask me like whenever you met me originally, 13, 14, 15 years ago, right? It's like I guess it would have been way different compared to now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because I also at that time I didn't have any debt either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I guess it wouldn't apply the college or the college debt.
Yeah.
The student debt.
Yeah.
Would have not applied.
And big difference right now that we met, years later, it's a lot different because now if you think about it, Well, now you're in debt. You have some sort of debt, right? I have some sort of debt as well. And it's different type of debt, right? I still didn't accumulate any college debt. Um, I know that you had some of it, or you still have some because of the program that you actually are utilizing, right?
So I didn't get any student loans, so I was paying everything just out of pocket. I did get grants, like a grant that was kind of basically like an exchange. Like if you serve certain years, we'll pay for it or we'll give you this amount. So I guess in a sense it is a debt still.
Okay.
That is still being paid, but because I'm in service, it's kind of like paying off, you know. So it just depends on the contract I want to say.
Yeah.
Like for in my case specifically, it would be just those 4 years.
Okay. So in a sense, you still have some sort of debt, but not like the very high or cumulative amount, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but obviously, I feel like.
But if I would have had, I guess, that debt, like, you know, when I met you, or you would have known that I came with debt, that would have probably been like okay, you know, I would think about it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's interesting.
Or I'm just saying, you know, because, you know, now that I think about it, you know, depending on the amount, I always hear, you know, or I used to hear coworkers, I'm still paying my student loans. I'm still paying, you know, it's a lot of money, you know, and it kind of feels like it's never ending. So I'm just glad I never had to go through that. So I can't, you know, I don't know what that feels like to say that I have student loans to pay. My type of debt would be like, you know, credit cards and that sort.
Gotcha. Okay, so that takes us to basically the other side, right? It's like obviously like majority of people have student debt, right? But what happens when like people are, you know, have like a very compulsive, you know, I guess behavior, and then they start buying a lot of things, and then that's a different type of debt, right?
Yes.
That's a debt where basically it's like, you know, well, how much do you spend? And that's when they don't know how to budget, you know, that's when people, you know, get into like, you know, extra debt, and then they start taking out loans and start taking out to pay these things, and they just, you know, it just creates kind of like a snowball effect, right?
Right.
So I guess one of the other questions that we did have last week was that is it cheating to hide purchases from your significant other? And obviously, like I said, for us right now, you know, you're my significant other.
Yeah.
So do you think that it's cheating? Why and why not?
I don't think it's cheating. It's just lying to the relationship.
Okay.
Like you're not being honest, especially if you know like how much your both incomes earn.
Okay.
And you know you're kind of budgeting, or both of you are budgeting on what you have, or what money there is for this or for that. And then if you're, I guess, spending more then that's kind of like not cheating, but just kind of putting the relationship in a tight spot.
Okay. So I feel like I had like a way different perspective to it, because it's like it really depends on what you're quote unquote hiding, right? Because obviously, you know, there's certain types of people that, you know, you just might be hiding something just ridiculous, right? Like one of these things that I know that I've seen and I've actually was reading is like, you know, subscriptions. You know, that could be like one thing that is like, okay, are you hiding that because, you know, are you ashamed of those type of subscriptions? But the other thing, like kind of like the ones that I was thinking, because I was like, you know, we have a joint account, right?
Right.
We have a joint account. And that's kind of like the thing that it goes into these topics, right? Because it's like, what's the best option for each relationship? And I feel like it's not like a one thing sets all, because each relationship might be different. Like for us, right? You have your own account, the one that you receive, you know, your paycheck. I got my own account, the same one that I could receive like from my from the military side, and then we have a joint account, right? I feel like that kind of gives us both that perspective or that I guess that option to still share a joint account, you know, and if we want to put in money there, make it like for bills or whatever it is, then you're good. But, you know, it also gives us that freedom if you have your own account, kind of like, you know, if I want to buy you something, you know, like for our anniversary or like, you know, a gift, you know, it kind of sucks that if you only have a joint account, right? Then those surprises will basically disappear, right? Because it's like, you know,
be able to see what purchases have been made.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily exactly what it was purchased, but at least you would have some sort of purchase tracking, if you want to say, you know.
And I guess that's how a lot of people also. You said, you know, would that be cheating or not?
Yeah.
And it's been, I guess, known that even, you know, celebrities or people, you know, they've been either, you know, have seen purchases of jewelry or like flowers, and it's like, huh? Like the wife is not getting or the current girlfriend or one of the girlfriends is not getting the flowers, so who are they going to, you know? Yeah.
So as of right now, we also, I just want to tell the people that are listening to us right now, we are also live on TikTok. We are not currently live on Talkaholics 411 on TikTok. We are currently live on More Ways Jose. And to our listeners as well, if you guys want to share this information with your friends, with your family, if you want to follow us on our social media, all of them, all the tags are Talkaholics 411, whether that be on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Again, as of right now, please follow us, subscribe. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, right now, currently we are on the More Ways Jose, which is my personal TikTok. We are live there as well. If you guys have any questions, make sure you guys go follow me as well. And then, you know, like I said, we're live. Annotate anything you guys want to like us to answer. But as of right now, like I said, yes, you know, people tend to be shady or sneaky, you know, when it comes to like, you know, their money. But that also, it's like a big how can you call it, like a big pillar in people's relationship, because you know if you already are shady when it comes to your money, you know what other things do you hide, you know? So it's like it just kind of like, you know, to put this into perspective, it does follow a lot of like or it shows a lot about a person, how they interact with their significant other when it comes to finances, because again, you might not know that that person has like a spending habit, you know, and these are very important, crucial things to ask each other whenever you're starting a relationship, right? I think like me and you had that conversation, like
we didn't have it at the beginning. I guess we were still in the dating stage.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like an upfront question like, hey, how much do you earn? Or like, you know, that type of thing. Okay. It was like later on when we were like, okay, we're more serious about the relationship. We want to have this relationship go somewhere else rather than just the boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yeah, it was, but at a certain point, whenever we were actually, you know, looking into more serious, like, you know, the more serious steps, I feel like that's when we actually did have that conversation, you know? It was like, you know, this is what I love about my wife, right? That even when we first started dating, like she was not the one to be asking like, you know, so what do you do? Like, you know, the common questions that sometimes, you know, as a person, and at that point, you know, I was in my very early 30s, so it was more like, okay, like it does become uncomfortable to a certain, you know, I guess to a certain point, right? But it's like I feel like for her, I never asked her, you know, what do you do for a living? She never asked me what I do for a living. But she knew that I was that I had a job or work. But
I kind of got hints, not by asking you, like, you know, directly, but just certain things that you would tell me. I kind of figured it out. And the only reason was because, you know, every other date that I would go on, not the first, but one of the first 5 questions would always be like, so what do you do? And it would kind of always start like that, you know? So I guess it was different for
Yeah.
us. It was like, okay, I'm not going to touch that question until.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to get to know you first.
Yes. So it was it has been interesting, right? Because I guess that kind of like what you say. You know, it was it got to a point where we already were comfortable with it, and not saying that at that point I think I was very well financially. So it's like sometimes depending on what you do, you don't want to attract certain people that are, for the lack of term or word, like gold diggers, right? I'm not saying that I was making like hundreds of thousands, but I kind of was. But you don't want to put yourself in that situation where, like, if that were to be the case, is like you kind of weed them out. You want to know that person for who they are at that point, and then build up from there. Again, I didn't ask her until, like I said, we were like very like serious already in the relationship, and then at that point it was like that's pretty cool, and like she's an educator. Myself at that point I had my construction company in Vegas, so it was like it was going super well. Did that change the perspective, I guess, for you and me? Did you think that changed?
In what way?
Well,
Because at first you did not know I was an educator.
no. Well, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so I guess my question. Let me rephrase that. So, did it change for you to know what I actually did?
Well, I wanted to get to know the person, So after you telling me what you did, it was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
How do? I mean, it was nice to know that you had your everything going on already. You were well set off. So it was just, I guess, like a plus.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was still like, okay, just because you seem set, I was still like, okay, well, it's still the beginning. I like, to me, it didn't really matter. It was more of, what do I feel? Are you like a good fit for me, for what I was looking for? So it wasn't just like money wise or financial stability.
Okay. So, I guess like for me, it didn't change how I saw you, right? Because again, kind of like you said it, we were trying to get to know each other for who we are, not what, like, how much money you make, all these things, right? And for kind of like what you said right now, for me, it was a plus to actually have a person. Not that you didn't care about it, but it was more like, okay, I mean, he's making money somehow, right? And then like, I got to certain points where I actually like to, I was like talking to her like in via like FaceTime and stuff like that. And then obviously she would see me with my construction uniform, clothes and stuff, right? So at first she probably thought like, oh, this guy is like a normal Hispanic guy that just works in the construction. But
for me, it was like, okay, let me just get to know the person, because most of the times, like on other dates, I would know what they would do and things like that. Everything would go fine. But there was something that wouldn't eventually click with the other person. So this time it was totally different, and I was just down for it to be different. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to ask him. I just want to get to know him regardless of what he does or him knowing what I do. Because I think when we met, I was finishing. I want to say I was just waiting for my degree.
Yes.
Like not my degree,
No.
my credential. So I was kind of still I had finished my career, so I was more in the, okay, now let's look for the job.
Yeah.
So when we officially, I guess, started, I got the job.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I did see. I do remember that. You were still doing kind of like how do you say it?
So I knew where I was going to be, basically.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I was just in the waiting period when I met you, and it was like, okay.
That's true. That is true. And then obviously, like I said, I did like that too because, and I still remember one of the things that because I did have a conversation with my in-laws, well, not now my in-laws, right? At that point, I guess I was the first guy that they knew that I was the actual, like, the boyfriend, right, dating with her. So this also involves, the finances, because one of the things that her dad, I still remember that her dad told me was like, hey, the only thing that I would ask you is that, that it took her, a lot to, go to school, finish her bachelor's, finish her master's. So it's like, the only thing that I would, appreciate is like, if you respect that she does, like, what she has been planning her whole life to do, or not her whole life, but up to that point.
To not let go of it,
Yeah, because and the reason why, and I kind of understand now, my in-law, my father-in-law, was because it's very important, right? Because sometimes people think, and if that's you, that's you. But like, majority of people think that it's like, okay, well, why do I even go to school? Like, this goes to, like, for girls and guys too. It's like, why do I even go to school if I just want to, marry, let's say, into wealth, or marry into, and I know that once I get married, like, I'll just become a housewife, right? I feel like my father-in-law, that was his biggest concern, because he saw, the struggles, obviously, where she went to school. So, and again, it was a very financial thing to say too, because again, I even told him, I was like, no, if something, I respect everything that she has gone through and everything she has built for herself, and I'm not here to be a burden. I'm here actually to support her in whatever she decides to do, right? So it's like, I really appreciate that from my father-in-law to talk to me that way, and I feel like he appreciated a lot more too, because he kind of was like, okay, this guy is not being, well, like, dumb with her. So it's like, he knows basically that we were going very serious, and this was the beginning of our relationship too. So um, for him, it was kind of like a eye opener. He was like, okay, so you brought the right person to the house, right? So I feel like that helped a lot, right? That conversation.
Yes.
And then it puts also into perspective, like, you as a person in front of your significant other's family, because again, same thing. My brothers-in-law, both of them, like, one of them, he is in construction too, right? He does construction. My father-in-law as well, but my other, I guess, is the middle child, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he is into an accounting, like, he's accounting. So same thing, right? All has to do with finances. So it's like, again, they knew that I wasn't here to basically play games, and I wasn't here to basically, kind of like, persuade her to do anything that she wouldn't want to do. And that's, like I said, that's very valid for like the entire family, because again, majority of times, I feel like the now parents, whenever they get to meet, I guess, their children's significant other, we all know, that they want the best for us. So it's like, they get kind of scared whenever they're like, okay, because and this has happened even like in my family. I have had family members that it's like, totally different. One of them would be like, I don't want to know if you're dating anyone. Mm-hmm. Just don't be dumb, and then, like, that's it, right? And then I have other parts of the family where the total opposite, that they're like, no, we want to know exactly who this person is, because again, those people have invested in their children, right? So that's a form of investment. That's a form of like, knowing what to do when it comes to, like, finances, and like in the accounts, and like all these things. Because again, the people that I know that have said that, they're the ones that actually have set up, college funds for their kids. Those are the ones that have already been like, I know that they have planned ahead for their children, which is pretty cool, right? Because it just shows the level of commitment that these parents have, and the level of commitment that they want their kids to have in a relationship whenever they do have a relationship, and even if they don't, right? Because I know there's single women out there and there's single guys out there that sometimes they're like, you know what? I don't care about a relationship. But it's always good to have, even when it comes, I feel like, in a group, it's like, I know that, like, I know majority of your friends now, and it's rough, because like for me, you don't know majority of my friends, because it's like, and this is kind of like, on the military side, because it's like, you got friends in the military, but it's like, you have them very like spread away, because either you move, you get out of the military, you kind of lose track of them, so it's like so hard. But what I'm getting with this, I know that I'm going all over the place, but what I'm going with this is that whenever you have, let's say, like like your friends, majority of your friends or the group that you hang out with, they will be a great influence on how you spend your money, or how you either how you spend it or how you save it. Because like, I'm gonna give a little example, right? Terry. Your brother, right? So it's like they are like, they earn a lot of money. Construction, you do earn a lot of money, but
you're single.
Yeah, he's single. He's all this.
Young.
You're young, and then like, but it's like his taste might not. You might be like, okay, like is it expensive? It's like the things that he likes to do are expensive, right? Raves. Like I mean, props to my cuñado, right? But like he goes hard. Like he will miss somebody's birthday in order for him to go to a rave, right? So it's like, he has his priorities, and again, that's fair, right? Because he's single, and that's the way that he wants to prioritize his money. Whenever he had a girlfriend, it was a little bit different, and we saw that. We were just like, oh wait, Terry's not going? Like, that's interesting. But it's like, those things kind of like do shift a way that you see a relationship, or the way that you actually handle your money in a relationship, right?
Right. And I think there's stages also to it.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're single and you're earning your money already,
yeah,
you're spending it on things for you, like you said, things that you like. My brother, for him, it's concerts, those type of concerts. For me, it was something else, even,
Oh yeah.
For you, it was also something else when you were single, and eventually you grow older and you start thinking, okay, I can't just be wasting my money on this for forever. I need to like do something with it.
Yeah. So, but again, like I said, like for the people that are single, and even the people that are in a relationship, also the big influence is your groups. Again, I want to say that whenever the in the group of like my in-laws, majority of them, they spend money on that. That's their whole thing. Like, it's like.
But it also has to do with how you grew up.
Yes.
Like, for example, even though we're so different, like me and my brothers and I, it's still like my mom, she's the one that budgets for our family, or when we were younger, she's been the one that budgets. So she taught us, you have to save, you have to, pay for this. At a certain age, we had to start paying kind of for our rent, our food type of thing, because, she was prepping us for things for adult life.
And I feel like that, and that does help you, when you're getting older, right? Because it like you said, it preps you for adulthood. It preps you for all those things, and I don't know. It's a different way of seeing things, and even like for me, like even people that like kind of like I'm gonna go back to my folks when it comes to like the military. It's like majority of these things that I've seen is that let's say about my military folks, right? For them, they come from everywhere, right? They come from everywhere, and then you see them. That is like some of them have kind of like you, right? Their parents were the ones that actually budget them all these things, and then you see other people that they don't care. They're like, I just got my first check, and it was like whole $700. What am I gonna do with this? I'm gonna go spend it all. And it was like, what? But again, sometimes that's like different, because again, maybe whenever they were being raised, or when they were growing up, they were not taught all these tools, or all these things to do with your money, how to save it, how to even invest in it, and then whenever they get into relationships, they're the exact same way. They're trying to figure out things as they go, and then it sucks sometimes because they get with another person that is like them, and then now they both are trying to figure it out, right? So it's like, again, this goes back again to like, square one. Is like, is it important to talk about finances whenever you are, starting a relationship or you're already in a relationship? How important is that to the outcome of that relationship, right?
Yes. So I guess to answer that, it would be a yes. It is important to talk about it at some point. It just depends where you're at in the relationship.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I agree on that. And then you said for you, and like I said, it's interesting, right? Because for you, you did say that it is cheating if you if you hide money, right?
I guess I wasn't thinking of subscriptions or any of that. I was just thinking kind of like what I shop for, like Amazon.
Still
A
subscription.
lot for, but I guess yeah, it would be like if I was looking into what type of purchases, and then if something didn't add up, then it'd be like okay, kind of like a little flag.
Yeah. So another thing too is, like I said, and we kind of already covered it, right? So for us, it was like we have a joint account, we have our own separate account. Um, it really depends on how you guys want to do it. There's people that all they have is a joint account, right? But then it comes to like, I guess it gets to a point where sometimes that can be very confrontational, because again, it also depends a lot on how much the person is earning, right?
Because it could be like, oh, I'm earning more, so I should be spending more, or you're earning more, so then you should be spending more than I am, type of thing.
And that goes again, and again, I know that Hasmin just came up right now, and I know that she, last time we were talking about her, asking about like the 50-50, right? So the 50-50, a lot of people really like, they're super against it, and a lot of people are like, "Look, that's pretty good." So I feel like for you, what do you think about the 50-50? And I know that this is probably going to be like, oh, we're going to talk this at home, right? But again, I feel like for you, what do you think about the 50-50? Let's say, and for you, what does 50-50 actually mean in comparison to like, because obviously, like, let's say if you were to make more money than I do, what is your 50? Exactly. Okay. So that's what you think, right?
Yes.
Okay. So to begin with, right? Let me rephrase this, or let me go back to that question. Whenever you were dating, what would you think about the person that would come in and then be like, you know what, let me split the bill?
I wouldn't think anything of it wrong, just because I would always like, or I like paying for my stuff. I don't like feeling like I depend on somebody else to like pay for my food, or feel that I owe them something just because we went out to like on a date.
Okay.
So I would always offer like
you want me to pay
yeah,
my
sometimes
spot?
it would be like, oh no, you don't have to. So it'd be like, okay, I'll get you on the next one.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's what happened to us. Because like on our first date, like, and see, again, it was the same way, right? For me, I wouldn't. It's not that I don't feel that it's right, right? If I'm, how can I do this? How can I say this without sounding like even like cocky or anything like that, right? It's like, if I'm the one inviting you to a location, obviously like you don't know this location, or maybe you do, right? But if I'm the one that is taking you there, it's like because I know either like the atmosphere there, the price for all these things. So it's like, it's just for me, I think it's like logical to basically be like, okay, if I'm inviting you to this location, I'm the one paying, right? And then I would feel that, well, I wouldn't ask you, if you're inviting me to a place, I wouldn't ask you to be like, hey, well, you're the one inviting me, so you have to pay, right? But I will feel like, to be considerate, especially at the beginning of the relationship, to be considerate, because like you don't know if that person's like in their last dime and they just want to impress you and they're just going out with you. And this time they're like, damn, like if she's really going to go to, I don't know, like a very expensive, restaurant. And then now over here, he's kind of like looking at his bank account and is like, it's about to go in negatives. So I feel like, at least for me, in my perspective as a guy, I feel like if I invite you to a location, I take you because, and I'm the one that's gonna pay because again, I know where I'm taking you. I know how much this most likely is gonna be. So it's like, and I feel like also this is why a lot of people, a lot of guys, whenever they first start dating somebody, and this is kind of like the next question, right? whenever somebody starts dating somebody, they usually be like, hey, do you want to meet up just for a coffee? And like, what's your point on stuff like that? Like, just to be going to coffee, to get to know somebody. Because for somebody it might be like, you're taking me the first date to drink coffee? Like, are you cheap?
Well, there's expensive coffee shops, so
yeah. I mean, Starbucks
depends what kind of coffee shop we're going to.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
I mean, most of the times, if it was a coffee shop, it was something else rather than Starbucks.
True. Well, I mean, and besides that too, like I feel like you don't get just coffee, right?
No.
You get some more stuff. But there is people out there, that they think that okay, a first date should never be at a coffee shop, or it should never be because like quote unquote, you show how broke you are, and it's like I feel like those type of mentalities kind of like are hurt.
I think they're also rare because to be up in the morning is already like, oh, okay, we have to go here to go get coffee. It's better just to be like doing dinner or something more later where, I mean.
But I've seen friends too that they actually invite girls like to like coffee shops, and it's like in the afternoon, and like
afternoon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Not early in the morning. Brunch maybe. But
it's still coffee.
That's true. That is still
You're
coffee.
You're saying, right?
Yeah. But like I've seen also, and on the guy's side, where they've been like ghosted for that reason, and then one of the girls actually did mention, she was like, if that's the only thing you can afford, then lose my number. But again, that also shows the type of woman that she was, because it was like, and this guy is
But I feel
loaded.
you talk about it earlier on, like you said, like where you're going to way before, and if you're not okay with it, well then you don't go.
Hi Lola.
Right?
Lola is, yeah. That is true.
Or you wouldn't show up. Like, okay.
Yeah.
This guy is just trying to take me to Starbucks, and I don't think it's
so what
I
if,
guess my life. It also, I guess, depends on how interested you're in that person too. You might want to go to Starbucks because you really like this person and you want to get to know him.
I feel like I can't even say anything because I guess our first official date, unofficial date was at a boba place. Yeah.
Yeah, it was more unofficial because we did have a date set up.
Was it the following day?
For dinner, yes, it was the following day.
Yeah. So yeah, it's man. But I mean, again, yeah, it just brings into like different perspectives, right? But yeah, it's so I guess just to like come back around to the topic is like, do you think that people should really talk about finances?
Yes, they should.
They should.
They should.
Like it should be a must. Like it's like a must.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, depending where you're at in the relationship with somebody.
Okay. I like that. And I appreciate that. Well, the thing too is like I said, is like at first like there was some things that she was saying that I was like, oh man, I didn't even know that. that my wife was thinking that way. But I guess until she heard my side of like my perspective, it does change a little bit, right? Or a lot, I should say, right? What's other topic that you might think that it might be related to finances and couples?
Well, I guess for some couples, sometimes it's the man that wants to keep counts of everything.
Okay, I actually have a good one. So yeah, so being that and I feel like that it could be to a point very affect the relationship. You're talking about like somebody who's like more like a macho guy that is
and not necessarily our case, but
I'm the one that holds basically
the
yeah. So that brings me into the next thing that I remembered. What do you think when it comes to family members or you helping family members?
Helping them financially?
Financially, yes.
For a period of time or like for set in stone, I'm going to help you out?
Okay,
Or,
so set in stone. Let's go with set in stone first.
well, I don't think it's fair because I worked hard to earn my money. So what is stopping you from earning your money?
Okay. So I feel like we haven't had
Conversation.
conversation or that issue.
But it
either.
depends on like who we're talking about and like why isn't this why I guess why should I help this person out? Or why am I helping this person out?
But what if it's let's say your immediate family? Let's say right now one of your brothers he can't work, and then you're like you're supporting him, and then I'm gonna play devil's advocate, right? Let's say that your younger brother, he's the one that likes to spare spend money like it's nobody's business, but then God forbid something happened to him, you know, would you still be like what? Yeah, I'm gonna support because he's my brother, but like his spending habits, and it was like kind of like brings it up to what you said, right? It's like why are we supposed to take care of him when he had the time, he had the money to save, and he didn't do that, and then now he's in that pickle, and then now we're responsible for that. What do you think about that?
Well, we wouldn't be entirely responsible for that. But I might want to say, okay, I'll help you out for a few, I don't know, for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Another thing too,
but it would also be something we would have to talk about because we would have to look into our budget. I'm not going to give more than I can.
Yeah. I feel like this topic or this specific concern is a lot for people that have families in other countries, right? People that have families in other countries, and the way that you're like, ah, man, it's like and I'll say this, like a couple of my workers, majority of the times what they would do is that like almost 90% of their check they would send back to their countries, and I would be like, damn, like that's crazy, right? But let's say like if he were to be like my sibling or something like that, that would be like, why aren't you? And that did happen to one of my actual workers where he would send, and he had them already, like kind of like in a schedule, right? They already knew like, hey, you need to send this amount of money, and then whenever something happened to him on this side, like he wasn't able to send it, right? Because he was like, I need this money to fix X, Y, and Z things. Right. So then he started having issues with his family because they were like, where's our money, right? And they were like so dependent on that money. And then I even told him too, I was like, nothing against them, but it was like, I told him, I was like, so are they also, earning something in where they're at? And then they said that before they were, but then after he was sending all that, I guess all those funds, they became complacent, right? So, like I said, for us, we don't have that issue right now at all. But like that is something also that that is a kind of like a harsh thing, or because it's like it's your family, or it's like your maybe a significant other, or maybe like a sibling, and again, sometimes or majority of the times people that send money to these folks is that they do it on the kindness of their heart, and almost, and I want to say 9 times out of 10 they're being bamboozled. Like, they're not utilizing this money for whatever they said they were going to use it. And then they get to a point where, like, now they're in trouble. Also over here or wherever they're at, like, they're the ones struggling without that money. And then just because they want to help, they want to be, a good Samaritan, they're the ones that fall behind on this,
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. So, we're almost at the end of our show today. Again, if you guys want to hear more or have a very specific topic that you guys want us to like discuss, or if you want me to bring back my wife to the show, DM us, send us a message, give us a call, send us a text. You guys can text us always at 714-360-3025. You can send us to our social media at either my personal one, More Ways Jose, that's across all platforms, or you can send it directly to Talkaholics, and that is exactly how it's spelled back here, Talkaholics 411. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Please follow us on TikTok because, man, things got really weird now because they want us to have at least minimum 50 followers in order for us to go live. That's what I'm doing right now with my personal account. But any closing words that you would like to say?
Well, having to do with finance, if it's somebody that you're very interested in, and then at some point, you see a future with this person, make sure you talk about these things like financial stuff before getting into something more serious, because if there's things that don't align with your mentality, it's going to be very rough. It's going to be a rough path.
Yeah, no, she's definitely right about that. Getting to know everyone or like the person that you're trying to get to know, right, is very important. And then I feel like these things are very crucial. They always say that there's three things, even at work, right? But this is something that you should probably do talk to your significant other. There's three things that they always say not to talk at work, and that is for politics, money, and religion. And I feel like those three things are very important things. Yes, maybe you shouldn't talk about that at work, right? Because it could create some, conflict. But I feel like all these three things are things that you should talk to your significant other. Because again, it might change, well, it shouldn't change the way that you see them, but like
it should shift your mentality to
yes.
kind of both come together to a
like a midpoint.
Like a midpoint, yes.
Yeah, to like find resolution within the differences as well, right? Because again, even like say like religion, right? Religion is very important when it comes to like a relationship, and money should be up there as well, right? Money should be one of the things that you guys should be talking about besides religion, besides politics too. Maybe politics at the end, but still that should be a serious conversation that you guys should have. And the reason why we're saying this is because, it happened to us. That was something that we did talk at the beginning. And, it's like, I just wanted to reiterate stuff to her because I don't want it to go down the line where we're basically already together. We were fully committed to something, and then all of a sudden, she hears something, and she's like, "Wait a minute, you never told me about this." And like I said, religion is another one. Maybe we can talk about this in the next episode. But religion and politics is something that divides relationships, divides even like family, households. Like it's so crazy, but it is so important to actually have those type of conversations because then you get to a point where you're deep in 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years in, and you're like, wait, we never had this conversation, right?
Right.
And I feel like I'm gonna add another one to that.
Okay.
Family planning. That should also be that should be the fourth one in a relationship at least. Do you want to continue? Do you want to have family? Do you want to raise kids? Do you want to adopt? Do you want to have your own? Do you want to be a surrogate mother? All these things should be very important in a relationship because again, if you're trying to spend the rest of your life with this person, whether that be if you believe in marriage or not, whether that be if you want to just like just spend time with this person, those things should be one of the most important things to actually discuss, right?
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like any other topics again. I'll say it again. Please follow us again in our social medias. For Talkaholics, it is Talkaholics 411. That will be in Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. And for my personal one will be More Ways Jose, same thing, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And then for my wife, yeah, she'll remain
It's
anonymous.
private.
But thank you guys for actually having us. It was a very special, I guess, show today. Well, one, because now you guys get to see my significant other, and the way that we actually do communicate when it comes to all these aspects. Because again, Saida, how's it going, Saida? But yes, this is, like I said, this is like so important, and then you guys can see actually how we interact.
And our mentalities are also different,
Yes.
Like some things are more like hardcore to them. You have certain, I guess, topics, views, perspectives. I'm a female, you're a male. That also plays
a big
role in how we think.
Yes. So again, if you guys want to have, for us to have my wife back to the show, make sure you guys put it in a comment. You guys follow us. Make sure you guys, DM us. Let us know what you guys want us to have that conversation between me and my spouse. And then, again, one last time, Talkaholics 411, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, you name it, we got it. Until next time, guys, I really appreciate you guys staying tuned. I know that we had like a couple people on TikTok. For the listeners, remember, we're every Wednesday at 6:05 on one of the best stations, 106.5 FM, KCAA. Thank you, guys.